uh, there's a moment I keep getting pulled back to, and I want to start there because usually I build up to the specific stuff slowly, but this time it arrived first before anything else, and it's been sitting with me since. It's a moment, a specific one. The last time this person saw you, I don't know exactly when it was. Could have been recently, could have been a while ago. Time doesn't always come through clearly for me. And honestly, for this reading, I don't think the when matters as much as the what. What happened in them? What moved through them? Because something did, and it's been staying with them in a way that I think might surprise you. Let me just sit with it for a second before I try to describe it. Okay. The first thing I notice is that this wasn't a dramatic moment. I want to say that clearly because I think sometimes when we hear what they felt when they saw you, we picture something cinematic, a charged glance across a room, music swelling, that kind of thing. This isn't that. This is smaller than that, quieter. And honestly, I think that's part of what makes it so real. What I'm picking up is that in this moment, whatever it was, this person looked at you, maybe for just a second, maybe while you were doing something completely unremarkable, and something shifted in them, not visibly. Nothing about their face or their behavior would have given it away. But internally, something moved. And the word that keeps coming up for me is recognition. Not recognition like, oh, I know that person. Deeper than that. Recognition like, there you are. Does that make any sense? It's hard to put into words, but it's like when you're looking for something, maybe you don't even know you're looking for it, and then suddenly it's right in front of you, and some part of you goes, oh, this is what I was looking for. That kind of recognition. Except it wasn't a thing they were looking for, it was you. Uh, Let me try to get more specific about the moment itself because I feel like there's detail here that wants to come through. I'm seeing you in a kind of in between state, not posed, not performing, just existing. Maybe you were talking to someone else, or doing something with your hands, or just sitting there thinking about something unrelated to them entirely. The kind of moment where you're not aware of being watched. And they were watching, just for a second. And in that second, something about you, the way you were being, struck them. Not your appearance, although that's part of it too. More I want to say the unguardedness of it. The fact that you weren't trying to be anything in that moment. You were just you doing whatever ordinary thing you were doing, and there was something about that ordinariness that hit them harder than anything performed could have. I keep getting this sense of them almost catching their breath, just slightly, a tiny pause in whatever they were doing, like their attention got pulled somewhere it wasn't expecting to go, and for a second they were somewhere else. In their own head with you, even though you were right there in front of them and probably had no idea any of this was happening. Has anything like that ever happened where you caught someone looking at you a certain way just for a second and then they looked away quickly, almost like they didn't want to be caught? Tell me in the comments if that's familiar, because I feel like there's a specific instance of that for some of you, and I think you might actually remember it once I say it out loud. Now, let me go into what was actually happening inside them in that moment, because I think this is the part that's going to be most meaningful. What I feel is a kind of quiet ache, not a bad ache. The kind that comes with wanting something you're not sure you're allowed to want. Looking at you in that moment, something in them recognized. I keep wanting to say home, but that feels too big, too fast. Let me back up. It's more like comfort mixed with longing, like looking at someone and feeling both completely at ease and also acutely aware of distance at the same time. The ease comes from something about you that feels familiar to them, even if you haven't known each other that long, or even if your relationship is complicated. There's something about your presence that doesn't require effort from them. They don't have to perform when they're around you, they can just be. And the longing comes from the awareness in that same moment of whatever separates you. Maybe it's circumstance, maybe it's something unsaid, maybe it's just the ordinary distance of two people who aren't as close as this moment suggested they could be. Whatever it is, in that second of looking at you, they felt both things at once. The comfort of you and the ache of not having more of it, that's a lot to feel in one glance. And they probably didn't process it as all of that in the moment. It probably just registered as a feeling, a kind of warmth with an edge to it, something that lingered for a few seconds after they looked away before they got pulled back into whatever else was happening. Um, I want to talk about what happened after that moment, because feelings like that don't just evaporate, they go somewhere. What I feel is that this person carried that moment with them afterward, not consciously necessarily, not like they went home and journaled about it, more like it became part of the texture of how they think about you, a reference point. The next time they thought about you, even about something unrelated, that feeling was kind of folded into it, like a flavor that's present even when you're not specifically tasting it. And I think this has happened more than once. I don't think this is a single isolated incident. I think there have been multiple moments like this, smaller versions of the same thing, where something about seeing you, really seeing you, in an unguarded moment, produced that same mix of ease and ache in them. And each time it happens, it reinforces the last time, builds on it. Makes the feeling a little more solid, a little more familiar, a little more impossible to write off as a one-time thing. Have you ever had the sense that someone's attention toward you has a kind of consistency to it, even if their behavior is inconsistent? Like, even when things feel uncertain between you, there's this undercurrent that doesn't change. That's what I'm describing. The undercurrent is this feeling. It's been there for a while. It's been there longer than you probably realize. Um, Let me shift a little and talk about what this person does with this feeling, because I think understanding that helps make sense of how they've been showing up, or maybe not showing up, in your life. What I notice is a kind of careful management, not coldness, management. Like someone who feels something strongly and has decided, consciously or not, that the feeling needs to be kept at a certain temperature, not too hot, not too cold, contained enough that it doesn't disrupt anything, but present enough that they don't have to pretend it's not there, at least not to themselves. This is the kind of thing that produces behavior that can look confusing from the outside. Warmth one moment, distance the next. Not because the feeling is inconsistent, but because the management of it is. Some days they let a little more of it show. Other days they pull back, maybe because the previous day felt like too much, like they revealed more than they meant to. If you've experienced this person as a little unpredictable, a little hard to read, I don't think that's because they don't know what they feel. I think it's because they know exactly what they feel and they're not sure what to do with it. The unpredictability is the visible evidence of an internal negotiation that's been going on for a while. I want to come back to that original moment again because there's something else I'm noticing about it now that I sit with it longer. There was a specific thought that went through their mind, not in words exactly, more like an impression that had the shape of a thought. And the impression was something like, I could lose this. Or maybe more precisely, I haven't done anything yet, and I could lose this without ever having done anything. That's a heavy thought to have about someone, even fleetingly. It implies an awareness of stakes, of something at risk, which means that in their mind, even if they've never said anything to you about it, this connection already has weight. It's not nothing to them. It's not casual. There's a version of their future that includes you in some form, and that moment, that glance, reminded them of that version and reminded them that it's not guaranteed. That kind of awareness, the awareness of what could be lost, often sits quietly until something happens that brings it closer to the surface. Sometimes that something is external, time passing, circumstances shifting, um, other people entering the picture. And sometimes it's internal, a growing impatience with their own caution, a sense that the management I described earlier is starting to cost more than it protects. I feel like one of those shifts might be happening now, or be close to happening. Like the equilibrium that's allowed this feeling to stay quiet for a while is becoming harder to maintain. Let me talk about you for a moment, because I think there's something here about how you've been receiving all of this, even if you haven't been receiving it consciously. I get the sense that you've felt something off or something more in this connection without being able to point to anything concrete. Like there's been a kind of static in the air around this person that you've noticed but haven't known what to do with. Moments that felt charged in a way that didn't match what was actually being said or done. A warmth that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than the situation called for. You're not making that up. What you've been sensing is real. It's the residue of these moments I've been describing. The feeling doesn't stay contained on their side only. Some of it leaks, some of it shows, and you've been picking up on the leakage even when you couldn't identify the source. Has there been a specific moment where you felt like something passed between you that neither of you acknowledged afterward? Where the air just felt different for a second and then everyone moved on like nothing happened? I think there's a specific instance of that for a lot of you watching this, and I think it's connected to exactly what I've been describing. Um, Now I want to talk about what comes next, because a reading like this isn't just about the past. The title says timeless, and I think part of what that means is that what happened in that moment isn't finished. It's still active, still moving. What I feel is that the management I described, the careful containing of this feeling, is reaching a point of diminishing returns. It's costing more energy to maintain than it used to. And when that happens, people tend to do one of two things. They either double down on the containment, pull back further, create more distance to compensate for the increased effort of managing the feeling, or they let some of it out, deliberately or not. I feel like the second one is more likely here, not as a dramatic confession necessarily, more like a loosening, a moment where the usual carefulness slips just slightly and something more honest comes through than usual. Maybe it's said in a roundabout way. Maybe it's not said in words at all, but shown through some action that's a little more than the situation called for. When that happens, and I think it's going to happen relatively soon, I want you to remember this reading, because what you'll be seeing in that moment is the same thing I've been describing, the same feeling that was there the last time they really saw you finally finding a crack to come through. I want to close with something that I think matters more than the specifics of the moment or what comes next. What this person felt looking at you wasn't something they decided to feel. It wasn't a choice or a strategy or something they're doing on purpose. It was involuntary, a response that happened in them before they had any say in it. And things that happen involuntarily, things that bypass our usual filters and defenses, tend to be the most honest things about us. So, whatever else is true about this connection, whatever complications or uncertainties exist around it, there's this one true thing underneath all of it. In a moment when they weren't trying to feel anything in particular, when they were just going about their day, something about you reached them genuinely, without effort on your part, without performance, just by you existing in the world the way you do. That's not nothing. That's actually a lot. Because the things people feel about us in our unguarded moments, the things that arrive uninvited, those are usually the truest indicators of what we actually mean to someone. Not what they say when they're being careful, what happens in them when they're not being careful at all. What happened in them the last time they saw you was real. It was warm. And it's still there, sitting quietly, waiting for the right moment to become something more than a feeling they're managing on their own. I think that moment is coming, maybe sooner than you'd expect. Stay open to it and trust what you've already been sensing, even if you couldn't explain where it was coming from. You were right about it. You've been right about it for a while.